When the phone stopped ringing, when the bed got cold on one side, when you sent a text and no one replied, when you looked around on a random Monday night and realized there was no one left to call. That's not weakness, that's not punishment, that's not the end of your story. When everyone else left, it was just you and God. And whatever happens inside you during this season is going to change everything you thought you needed. You're not being destroyed, you're not being forgotten, you're being prepared. When the room empties out, when the silence gets heavy, when the pain has no name, it's preparation. Today we're going to talk about something most people don't have the guts to name out loud. That moment when you realize you're truly alone. Not alone by choice, alone because people walked away. Let's talk about what happens when the relationship falls apart. When friendships disappear with no explanation. When your family doesn't show up. When you cry in silence and nobody even knows. We're going to talk about 8 things God is doing in you right now in this painful season that isn't accidental. Stick with me, because this message isn't just encouragement, it's your confirmation. There's a kind of silence only people who've been left behind truly know. It's not the silence of peace. It's the silence when the door closes, and you know this time it's not opening again. It's the absence of the voice you used to hear every single day. It's the empty space where someone used to be. But listen closely to this. God doesn't remove people from your life to hurt you. He removes them so you can finally see who never left. The exit of those who walked away is the entrance of the one who's always been there. Paul knew exactly what it felt like to be abandoned. In 2 Timothy 4:16 he writes, "No one stood with me. Everyone deserted me." He wasn't preaching to crowds at that moment. He was in a prison cell, completely alone. But in the very next verse he says, "The Lord stood with me and gave me strength." Paul walked into abandonment as a preacher. He walked out as a living testimony. 2 Timothy 4:17, "The Lord stood with me and gave me strength." When everyone else left, all that remained was you and God. And that was enough. The busy life has an effect that most people don't even notice. It drowns everything out. While there was noise, there was distraction. While there were people around, there was constant chatter. And now that everything is quiet, the silence feels unbearable because you don't know what to do with it. But God almost never shouts. He whispers. And a whisper can only be heard when everything else is quiet. The silence around you isn't rejection. It's the exact setting God needed to create so he could finally be heard. Elijah was exhausted, alone, hiding in a cave. He was begging to die. God didn't show up in the strong wind. He didn't show up in the earthquake. He didn't show up in the fire. He showed up in a gentle whisper. 1 Kings 19:12. God waited for the silence to speak. 1 Kings 19:12. After the fire came a gentle whisper. The silence you're living in right now isn't the absence of God. It's the frequency where he speaks. Ever since you were little, you learned to depend on things, on approval, on someone being there, on people telling you everything was going to be okay. And when those people left, it felt like the ground had been pulled out from under your feet. Because without them, you no longer knew who you were. But God didn't take those people away to hurt you. He took away the crutches so you could finally discover that your own legs were always strong enough to hold you up. The strength you think you don't have is being built right now, in the middle of this pain. Ruth lost her husband. She was left in a land that wasn't hers. No protection, no guarantees, no backup plan. But she chose to stand up anyway. She went out to the fields to gather what was left. And God saw her. Boaz saw her. Ruth walked in as a widow and a foreigner. She walked out as an ancestor of the king himself. Lamentations 3:24. The Lord is my portion, therefore I will wait for him. You're not lost without them. For the first time, you're actually finding yourself. The pain of being left behind has a very specific taste. It's not just sadness. It's a mix of sadness and shame, of loss and self-doubt. You keep asking yourself what you did wrong, if there was something you could have done differently. And the pain doesn't leave. It stays. It wakes up with you every morning. But what if this pain isn't a punishment? What if it's a classroom? God doesn't waste a single bit of your pain. Every tear you've cried in silence is being collected and turned into something you can't see yet. Hannah was mocked, misunderstood, and empty inside. Her pain was so deep that the people around her couldn't even tell it was prayer. But her tears didn't push God away. They drew him closer. And from the deepest place of her pain, Samuel was born, one of the greatest prophets in history. James 1:3-4. The testing of your faith produces perseverance. The pain you're feeling right now isn't the end. It's the altar where your miracle is being conceived. For years, you defined yourself by someone else's presence. You were so-and-so's girlfriend, so-and-so's wife, so-and-so's best friend. And when that person left, you suddenly didn't know how to answer the simplest question, who am I now? God is answering that question right now. In the silence of people, he's revealing an identity that never depended on anyone else. You are not who they said you were. You are who he says you are. Hagar ended up in the desert without being invited, invisible to people, discarded, forgotten. But it was in that desert that she received something no other woman in the Bible had received before her, a name for God. She called him El Roi, the God who sees me. She walked in invisible. She walked out named. Genesis 16:13. You are the God who sees me. When the mirrors of people break, God becomes your reflection. And what you're going to see is going to surprise you. Before, your faith depended on other people's testimonies, on Sunday church services, on having someone by your side. But now that you're alone, the faith that worked in a group isn't strong enough to carry the weight of your private pain. And that's scary. But there's a kind of faith that only grows in isolation. It's not Sunday faith. It's 3 a.m. faith. The faith that declares even when you can't see. That praises even when you don't feel it. That trusts even when it doesn't make sense. This faith isn't built in a crowd. It's built exactly where you are right now. Habakkuk looked around and saw nothing. No fig tree, no fruit, no flock, no harvest. Everything that used to hold his life together was gone. And still he declared, "Yet I will rejoice in the Lord." He didn't pretend everything was fine. He chose to trust anyway. Habakkuk 3:17-18. Even though the fig tree does not blossom, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. The woman who learns to praise in the desert is no longer afraid of any storm. Your loneliness isn't a delay, it's a labor room. The hardest part isn't the pain itself, it's the feeling that nothing is happening, that while everyone else is moving forward, you're stuck in place, that God forgot your address, that the waiting has no deadline and no answer. But what looks like empty waiting is actually pregnancy. Purpose isn't born in public, it's conceived in silence. God isn't ignoring you, he's incubating you. Elizabeth hid herself for 5 months after she conceived John the Baptist, not out of shame, because God was forming something inside her that was too sacred for open spaces. She went in hidden. She came out carrying the forerunner of the Messiah. Isaiah 43:1. Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine. You're not sitting on a shelf. You're in a womb, and what's being formed inside you is going to surprise even you. You entered this season as a woman who had plans, who had people, who had certainties. And today, you barely recognize the life you're living. Part of you is scared that the pain is all that's left. But listen, the woman who walks into the desert is not the same woman who walks out. Hagar walked out with a name for God that no one had before. Ruth walked out with a destiny no human logic could explain. Hannah walked out with a son and an anointing. And you're going to walk out of this season with something no relationship, no friendship, and no human presence could ever have given you. You're going to come out in a whole new way, anointed, aligned, unshakable. Esther went through 12 months of preparation before she stepped into the king's presence. No one knew what was being formed in her. She didn't know what was coming. But that time of hidden preparation was exactly what made her capable of saving an entire nation. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. You're not being left behind. You're being prepared to go further than you've ever been. You came into this message carrying the heavy weight of being left behind. But I need you to hear this right now. You are not abandoned. You are being aligned. You are not broken. You are being built. You are not alone. You are with the only one who will never leave. When everyone else walked away, it was just you and God. And that's not little. That's everything. The woman who walks out of this season won't be the same one who walked in. She'll leave with a faith forged in the desert, with an identity no abandonment can erase, with a purpose that was conceived in the silence. You're not at the end. You're at the beginning of what God has always planned for you. If this word touched something inside you, type it in the comments right now with courage. I was left, but I was not abandoned. Leave it there as a declaration. Because sometimes the words come before the belief, and God honors even faith the size of a mustard seed. Share this video with that woman you know is feeling alone right now. The one who's up late. The one who's holding everything inside without anyone noticing. She needs to hear this. God bless you. And remember, when everyone else left, it was just you and God. And that was enough.